Welcome back again. In this lesson, we're going to talk about two very important aspects of a scroll view. One of them is called content size, which is the most important one, and there's another one called a content inset. So let's go ahead and see how we use either of these two. I'm going to go to Xcode and start a new application. Obviously, I'm going to call it a scroll view content size. And the content size is something that we kind of saw it in our previous lesson when we were setting it in the storyboard. But this time I want to do it programmatically. So I'm going to come in here, say I have a UI scroll view. So UI scroll view. And my UI scroll view is somewhere in here. Just like the last time, I'm going to place it somewhere. I know I almost always use these four numbers, but those are kind of irrelevant. You can place it wherever you like, and these are just numbers. So maybe this time I'm going to place it at 100 units from the bottom. So place it there, and that is going to be our scroll view. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a different background color, such as a light gray color, and I'm going to go ahead and make an outlet for it. So in here, I'm going to say my scroll view becomes my scroll view. And that's all I have to do in the storyboard. Now let's go ahead into our view controller and imagine that we have some content that we want to add to this scroll view. I'm going to say that content is going to be a UI view. So I'm going to say var, I'm going to say my red view, or any kind of view essentially, is going to be a UI view. And then in my view did load, I'm going to go ahead and say my red view is a UI view with a CGRect, and that CGRect, I'm going to make it to be these values. Let's stick it to the top left corner. So the top left corner are 0 and 0. I'm going to give it the same width as my scroll view. So I'm going to say my scroll view dot bounds, not bounces, bounds dot width. So I get the width of it and apply it to the width of my red view. And then the height of it, I'm going to put a manual number to it. Let's say 2000. So it's a very, very long view, a long red view. And I have to make it red as well. So I'm going to say my red view dot background color becomes UI color dot red. So now I have a scroll view that I have to fit this red view inside it. So to do that, I'm going to say my scroll view dot add the sub view, and I'm going to add the red view into it. Now, the problem is if we run the application now, nothing is going to happen. And to prove that I'm actually going to do that, I'm going to run the application. And even though our red view is trying to be a view with 2000 units on the height, it still is not going to force the scroll view to scroll. As you can see, as much as I try, nothing really happens in here. And that's simply because the default content size of a scroll view is the same size of its boundaries. So to fix that, I have to apply a new size to the content size of my scroll view. So I'm going to go in here and say, well, my scroll view dot content size, and it's asking for a CG size. I'm going to say it's a CG size of, and I have to provide two values to it, width and height. So the width and height of this scroll view have to be the same as the width and height of my red view if I meant to completely cover the entirety of the scroll view with the red view. So I'm going to say that value as well as a 2000. You could of course place both of these inside a different variable and apply it in here and over there. But for now, I'm going to say my content size is actually 2000. And let's see what happens now. And once my view loads, I can see that now I can actually scroll, and we see this little indicator on the right side that is scrolling on the height. The same very principle would be applied if you wanted to make it a scroll on the horizontal level, which is sometimes happening, but I would say that most often your scroll views are doing vertical scrolling. Now, we got to see what a scroll view content size is, but what is a content inset? Let me explain that to you. I'm going to say my scroll view dot content inset, and that's asking for a UI edge inset. I'm going to produce a UI edge inset with four values, top, left, bottom, and right. So the purpose of a content inset is to essentially make the interaction area of a scroll view smaller than the actual area. Now you might be wondering, where would that be actually useful? Let me show you an example of how this could actually play to our advantage. Let me go to a storyboard. And in here in my storyboard, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a button. And for the button, I'm going to place it somewhere up here. And I'm going to place it like that. Say it's got a height of maybe 64. So it's a little bit taller. and is placed right where my scroll view is, but is not a child of my scroll view. So it's actually a child of the actual super view. And my button has something like this. It has a background color that is somehow semi-transparent. Let me add a color that is semi-transparent, like a green like that, and semi-transparent. And then my text color, maybe it is black, and then the button says click on me or something to that effect. That doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to set the constraints for it. I'm going to say is constrained to the leading, to the trailing. It is always the same height and is constrained to the top of the scroll view. So they both have the same top. Now the height of my button was 64, if you remember that. I'm going to go in here, that's the 64. I'm going to go to my view controller and say the top of it, 64 units, we are not going to see anything. Left and bottom and right, I'm going to keep it the same. So like I said, we want to change the interaction area of the scroll view. If we run this application now, we will see that underneath the button, even though we can see it, it doesn't distract us from the content. So I can actually scroll and the content actually ends right where the button is, but then when I scroll, they actually go under the button. And that actually happens from time to time. For example, in your Photos app on your iPhone, you can actually scroll the content under the menu on the top, but yet the content inset allows you to be able to make interaction with the objects that are under it. Imagine in this situation if I didn't have the content inset. So there would be something like this. At all times, some of my content would be under the button, which is not really a good thing. Maybe I wanted to be able to read them properly, or I wanted to be able to make interactions with them. So we use the content inset to make sure that our interaction area is actually different. Another example I can give you, which is something that I will show you towards the end of this whole course, where we talk about a lot of different solutions, is, for instance, if you have a text field within this red view and you want to be able to tap on it and start typing stuff. So the moment you do that tap, the keyboard appears and actually hides that text field. So in a situation like that, you actually use the content inset to push the content above as long as the keyboard is visible. And that really helps because it allows us to see the content of the text field for as long as the keyboard is up, and also allows us to scroll properly within the scroll view. So this was how we use content size and content inset. Let's move on to our next lesson.